BMW launched the original M2 back in 2015. Subsequently, they built the M2 Competition and the M2 CS, but now for the 2023 model year, they've got an all-new second generation car. Let's check it out. Let's start with a walk around of the 2023 BMW M2. It is based on the 2 Series Coupe, which I think is a lot boxier and more aggressive in this new second generation. We're going to be looking at a Toronto red example. The M2 comes in 5 different colors. The launch color is this new color called Zandvoort Blue. It's kind of a baby blue. It looks absolutely gorgeous, but I think that Toronto red is going to be the more macho of the two. And I think if I were picking out of the 5 colors, this is the color I would go for. And let's look at the front grille here, where BMW has gone for a horizontal, very boxed, very open front end here. Almost looks very race car-esque to me. We've got our M2 logo in here, and just as you get on all of the 2023 model year M cars, we've got their heritage logo here instead of the traditional BMW roundel, which I think looks really cool. Moving around to the side, we have these very boxed, very flared wheel arches, just like you got in the previous generation M2. Gives it that very macho, sort of muscle hamster type look that I absolutely love. Now, the overall length, it's over 8 inches shorter than the BMW M4, and in the wheelbase it's a little over 4 inches shorter than the M4, so you are going to notice that proportion wise it doesn't look quite as long. It also is a little bit taller in the look. I've always liked that about the 2 Series. One thing that I find a little strange is this kind of line that curves up right here. It's a little bit strange in some of the colors, but it doesn't look too bad with the red here. And we also have these flush door handles that you kind of pull on to open the doors. Just a little bit weird. I almost prefer a normal door handle. One thing that I do really like though is the optional carbon roof that we get here. You can see it has kind of a double bubble effect. That's going to save you 13 pounds on the BMW M2. And finally, walking around to the back here, we've got some really interesting taillights, not too different from what you're going to find on the standard 2 Series, although you do have a wider track back here. We've got big quad exhausts down here that I think look really nice as well, with a tiny little lip spoiler. You can get some M performance parts for this car, including a big wing up here with a separate wing up here over the roof. That's kind of a cool effect. There are 2 different wheel options I should mention. We've got the sort of silver star wheels here. You can get an all black option. I prefer this because it allows you to see the wheel pattern just a little bit better. And you can get an M performance part option that's going to get you Michelin Cup 2 tires. Michelin Pilot Super Sports are going to be your standard tire. Now, the M2 might not be the most practical car, but it's really not useless. You can see that the trunk here is quite large. It goes back quite deep. And if I pull these 2 tabs right here and I reach in here and I push those down, you can see that we can fold all the way into the trunk. So you could carry some big items with the M2. Ditto for the back seat, where the 2 Series really isn't all that much smaller than the 4 Series in terms of rear legroom. You pull this front seat up using this tab and it's going to slide forward electronically, giving you just enough room to squeeze into the back here. I'm going to go ahead and put it back so you can see exactly how much space I have. My knees are not touching this back seat. I don't have a ton of legroom, but this might be smaller than the BMW 4 Series, but it really doesn't feel any more limited back here in terms of legroom. I think part of that is due to this carbon fiber bucket seat. It's obviously much thinner than the base seat, and it is gorgeous to look at from back here. All right, so now let's step inside the cabin of the BMW M2, where we do have a lot of options here on this car, namely these carbon bucket seats that I want to talk to you about. So these are about a $10,000 option. You can see they have this beautiful carbon fiber here on the back. They also have holes going in the actual seats as well. You can see you can kind of stick your hands through peekaboo like so. That is going to save you about 23 pounds over the standard seat in this car, but $10,000 is a lot of money to spend. These are very, very stiff seats. You've got this big carbon fiber bulge in the middle. They hug you in beautifully, but that is a lot of money to spend on a car. The other option is going to be kind of a base sport seat. You can get that in just black. You can get it with this cool M stitching that we have here with these M stripes. So you're going to see we have all of the different colors of the M logo here in leather. You can get that on the base seat as well. And for the first time ever, you can get a cognac seat, which is a fancy way of saying brown, which you have never been able to get on an M2 before. So I really do like that. Here in the center, you can have either an 8-speed automatic, or we've got the optional no-charge 6-speed manual transmission. We'll talk about that just a little bit later. And now I'm going to take you first-person view to see what else we've got in this interior. So the M2 has BMW's latest iDrive 8 infotainment system. I'm going to go ahead and start it up so that we can see that system fully deployed in action. We've got a 12.3-inch gauge cluster here, and then we've got this massive 14.9-inch touchscreen with iDrive 8, as I mentioned. So we do have a setup mode here. So these are all of the different things that you can customize here on the interior. You can have the engine in Efficient Sport, Sport Plus, the gear assistant, that's going to be your automatic rev matching. Chassis can be in Comfort, Sport, and Sport Plus for your suspension. Steering in Comfort and Sport, brake in Comfort and Sport, and then you have your M traction control, which you can set in different settings as long as you have the DSC off. Now the gauges here are rather cool. These are M specific, so all of the M cars are going to have these gauges. You can see that they are the M colors, which is quite nice. We've got red here on the right and blue on the left. We've got our map in the middle. You can customize what is in the middle as well. So you can have a smaller version of these settings that I showed you earlier. You can have your radio information, what have you, and you can change it using this M mode button. So the M mode button is going to bring up 3 options so that we can make it sporty. So now you can see the tachometer is much bigger. You've got your gear position and your speed right here in the middle, and then you have your settings there on the left, and then there is a final M mode for track. You have to confirm that you are not on a public road because it's going to blank your entire screen, and now it's just going to make everything bigger. You've got your tire PSI and temperature on there, which is pretty useful. And the thing that I find a little bit annoying about all of this is there are a lot of different things to set up here with all of this. But once you figure out what you want, you've got your M1 and M2 configurations. We've seen these before on M cars, and you can save the settings. So let's just say you want everything in Sport Plus except the chassis. You want that in Comfort, you can save that to M1. And then maybe when you're feeling a little frisky, you can have the chassis in Sport Plus, everything else in Sport Plus, and you can save that to M2. So once you have everything set up the first time, it's really not that bad to just hit quickly the M1 or the M2 button. And there's one final thing I want to mention on this interior. I already talked to you about some of the other M options. We've got M stripes here, and of course the M stitching and all of that here. I love the M colors, but I also love these lights on the door. These are lights in here that form a little M flag. That is so cool. All right, so now let's hop behind the wheel of the 2023 BMW M2. And I want to just let you know where I stand on the current crop of BMW M cars. The M2 has been my favorite for a long time because it's the smallest, it's the most affordable, and honestly, I think it's the most fun despite being the most affordable. A lot of the modern day M cars have become too expensive for your average consumer to really be able to afford, but this is a sports car package that you can just maybe attain someday. I mean, listen, I don't have enough money for a brand new M2, but maybe if you work hard enough, get the right promotions, you'd be able to get an M2. And the other M cars have just gotten so big and so heavy and almost too powerful for the public road, whereas this just felt a little bit closer to what made M special in the first place. Cars like the E30 M3, the E36 M3, the E28 M5, I can feel that DNA a little bit closer closer in the M2 than I can in a lot of the modern M portfolio. Now this might be the least powerful M car, but it's still got plenty of juice. We've got the same S58 twin turbocharged inline-six engine that you get in the M3 and the M4 and the X3M and X4M. It's a little bit detuned compared to those models. You're going to get 453 horsepower and 405 pound-feet of torque, which is about 90 horsepower more than you got from the original M2 when it first debuted. Not quite as much more as the M2 competition, but it is still more power than the M2 comp from the previous generation and more than the M2 CS had. All of that power is routed out to the rear wheels only. They have not introduced an all-wheel drive M2 yet. I'm probably sure they will. And you can get that going out through either an 8-speed automatic that's available at no cost, or you can get what I'm driving, probably the one that you want if you're watching this video, a 6-speed manual transmission. The 6-speed manual is my transmission of choice. I love being able to hear that glorious inline-six followed by a quick gear change from yours truly. And it does have BMW's gear shift assistant, which is going to help you with the downshifting if you're not the heel toe master. So you can go ahead and throw it down a gear. It's going to rev match for you, and then you're on your way. It does a really nice rev match. You can kind of help it if you want to do that, but the computers do a pretty nice job of it. Now the steering on this car is lighter than I've felt from other M cars recently. I really like it. You can make it a little bit heavier by playing around with the settings, but I like it in the comfort mode. I feel it's a little bit less twitchy. It allows me to have a little bit less fun and really explore this 50-50 or near 50-50 weight distribution of this car. In these canyon roads, oh man, I'm just having so much fun in this little M2. I do not wish that I was in a bigger, more powerful M car. I feel like I have plenty of power here. 0 to 60 is going to take 3.9 seconds if you get the 8-speed automatic, so you will be quicker with the automatic transmission. 4.1 seconds if you get the manual. Now, in my personal opinion, just leave for work 0.2 of a second quicker and you won't notice the difference in performance. You'll have more fun grinning and shifting it yourself with the 6-speed manual, trust me. We do have the M adjustable traction control where you can control the amount of slip angle that you are able to get from the car, but I don't know if you can see, it might be a little overexposed. That is a very, very steep drop down to the bottom of this mountain, so I'm going to go ahead and leave the traction control very much on. Now 0 to 60 aside, you will cap out at 155 miles an hour in the M2. That is an electronically limited top speed, but if you get the M driver's package, they're going to go ahead and up that top speed to 177 miles an hour. Now, I don't live anywhere where you can hit that sort of speed, legally at least, so, maybe, you don't need to spend the money on the M driver's package, but it is nice to have bragging rights to say that my top speed is 177 instead of 155. And as I said earlier, it's the size of the M2 for me. It's the chuckability. It's the right amount of power that doesn't feel overwhelming. It's the 6-speed manual transmission for me. The auto rev match that you can use or not use. You can turn it off if you don't want to use it. I think it's actually really good. It's the steering that feels light and nimble that just allows you to play with the car. If you are a true driving enthusiast, I think the M2 is going to be right for you. I will say the suspension is a little bit on the firm side. We do have adjustable dampers on this car. You can do Comfort, Sport, and Sport Plus. I've been driving on this canyon road in comfort mode, and I do not feel like the body has been slopping all over the place. So even in its most comfortable setting, it's still great on a canyon road like this. So I would go ahead and leave it on the comfort settings. There's a ton of different settings here that you can configure here on the M2. It's almost a little bit too complicated, in fact. You can adjust the engine, the gear shift assistant, the chassis, the steering, the brakes, and that M traction control. Luckily, once you figure out how you like it, you can save it to one of the M1 or the M2 buttons and be on your way. But it is a little bit complicated the first time that you get in this car and go. And I am loving the M bucket seat on this road. Like I said earlier, I don't know if I'd want to live with it every day on my commute, but if I had canyon roads like this in Florida, oh man, the seat is doing such a nice job. These corners are so tight and so narrow, and I do not feel like I am holding on to the steering wheel for dear life. I do not feel like I am getting an ab workout trying to hold myself in. I haven't driven the M2 with the base seat, but these carbon buckets are amazing on a road like this. I will say that out of all the M cars on sale today, the M2 might be the most difficult to live with. It is a little bit firm, it's a little bit small, but it's cheap, it's fun, it's blisteringly fast when the road straightens out. Woohoo! That S58 engine is such a charmer. It doesn't really sound turbocharged, which is what I said when I first drove this current generation of the BMW M4. So when you go ahead and downshift, it just pulls to the top. You got the cool shift lights on the gauge. Biggest smile on my face. The M2 remains my favorite M car. So that was the 2023 BMW M2, still my favorite M car that money can buy, and the cheapest, starting at $62,200. I think that the M2 is a relative bargain within the BMW lineup, although the M240i for about $48,000 is also a really great value if you can live without the extra power and the optional manual transmission of this car. Now, to get all of the available options on the M2, you will be spending about $75,000. Which is a lot of money, but relative to what you can load up an M3 or an M4 to, I still think that the M2 is kind of a bargain and the one that I would buy if I were putting my own money on the line. I really hope you've enjoyed this review. If you have, please leave us a like, subscribe to our channel, and ring that notification bell. And also, if you want to read my full review of the 2023 BMW M2, be sure to check out carbuzz.com. I'll see you next time.